Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is now looking into reining in the conservative media environment because we have to do something about this scourge, this plague of conservatives speaking their mind on social media.
I do think that several members of Congress in some of my discussions have brought up media literacy because that is a part of what happened here. And we're going to have to figure out how we rein in our media environment so that you can't just spew disinformation and misinformation. It's one thing to have differing opinions, but it's another thing entirely to just say things that are false. And so that's something that we're looking into.
So we're looking into that. We're looking into that because you don't have a right to say stuff that I don't like. We got to do something. We got to rein you in, conservatives. Right now, conservatives have one social media platform, the smallest of them all, X, happily, where we can speak. The rest of the social media platforms we can't. You know, if you watch this show on YouTube, huge segments are censored out of the show every day. So if you want to get the full show, you've got to go to Spotify, you got to go to Apple Podcasts, you got to go to X, you got to go to Daily Wire Plus, of course, because the tech platforms are already reining in conservatives, and AOC wants to rein them in even further. And my answer to that, you're going to hear conservatives whine and yell and scream and rend their garments and say, this isn't fair, but my Constitution says you can't, man. But my answer is, yeah, of course. Of course she's going to want to rein this stuff in. There are three options when it comes to our public square. Either they rein us in, we rein them in, or we both rein each other in. Either the public square will be dominated by leftist standards and taboos exclusively, or it will be dominated by conservative standards and taboos exclusively, or we'll come to some kind of conciliation where we agree, okay, certain things are off limits, but we'll have a broader range even for behaviors and ideas that are in conflict with one another. But that's how it's going to work. Right now, go to ro.co/Knowles. If you're a fella who needs a little extra help in the old boudoir, I've got something for you. New Rose Sparks are a 2-in-1 prescription treatment that combines the active ingredients in Viagra and Cialis, two powerhouse treatments. Sometimes it's not just the ingredients that matter, it's how you're taking the medicine. That's why Rose Sparks are designed to dissolve under your tongue. This dissolvable treatment hits your bloodstream faster than the old pills, keeping you present with your partner, or as we used to call those people, your spouse, instead of waiting for a pill to work. Plus, tadalafil is the active ingredient in Cialis and lasts in the system for up to 36 hours. So when the mood is right, you'll be ready without another dose. Also, tadalafil is just kind of fun to say. Find out if prescription Rose Sparks is right for you. Get $15 off your first order and connect with a provider at ro.co/Knowles. That's $15 off at ro.co/Knowles. Compound drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Only available for prescribed after an online consultation with a provider. Over the weekend, I had the great honor and privilege of debating Princeton professor Robbie George on the topic of academic freedom. And it was to commemorate God and Man at Yale by William F. Buckley Jr., which is a book sometimes invoked in defense of academic freedom, but which ironically is a polemic against academic freedom. Before the right was for free speech, we were against free speech. Before the right was for academic freedom, we were against academic freedom. Not because we oppose it, not because there is such a thing as perfect free speech and academic freedom and we think it's bad, but because we don't think it's real at all. We think those are just polemical terms terms of propaganda that are used by the left to subvert traditional standards and norms before they impose their own standards and norms themselves. And as part of this debate, I pointed out that after Buckley wrote God and Man at Yale, his next book was a defense of Senator Joe McCarthy. And he said McCarthyism, I'm slightly paraphrasing, McCarthyism is a crusade around which people of stern moral character can unite. And then, even though he tempered his support for McCarthy a little bit, he continued to defend the senator for decades after he died. Robert F. Kennedy Sr., by the way, attended Joe McCarthy's funeral. So there was In those days, a fairly strong anti-communist sentiment. Now, the way McCarthy is taught, he's the evil boogeyman, and he was totally making things up, and there were no communists in the government. We know there were communists in the government because Richard Nixon caught one of them. That was Alger Hiss. But anyway, I digress. McCarthy was not tactically all that effective, but in the claims he was making about communist infiltration and the threat of communism, he was absolutely right. So I pointed out that Buckley, in I think it was 1966, had a show on his public affairs program, Firing Line, called McCarthyism Past, Present, and Future. This really scared people because they said, well, McCarthyism has a future? What? That's crazy. And so Professor George pointed out, he said, well, we know what the future of McCarthyism looked like. The future of McCarthyism was from the left. And he's absolutely right about that. But I think that just kind of proves my point. There was McCarthyism from the right when the traditional Americans were vigorous in their opposition to communism. The moment we gave that up, we didn't just get a neutral public square where everyone agreed to disagree about everything. The moment we gave that up, we got McCarthyism from the left. We got communists, actual explicit communists in some cases, and other shades of leftists persecuting conservatives and squeezing out the space for conservative thought in the public square. Look where we are today. We can barely speak anywhere. In the effective public square, the digital landscape, we have very few places to speak of any prominence. In the university, we've all been run out. There are a handful of conservative professors at prominent universities. In television, we're limited in where we can speak because either we're advancing or we're retreating, but there's really no stable, neutral public ground. Either we're defending our standards and norms, or they are being eroded by the left. AOC ain't going to stop trying to rein us in. The only question is, are we going to try to rein them in a little bit? Are we going to say, guys, like the porn in the elementary schools and all the obscenity, and the kind of calls for the death of America and the jihad protests in the streets and the whole, no thanks. We're good. No thank you. We're not going to do it. And the Satan clubs at elementary schools, which is a real thing that actually is taking place right now, which is absurd even 5 or 10 years ago to say would be a punchline. Yeah, all that stuff. No thank you. We're not going to do that. We're going to exercise our political freedom to set standards, and we're going to rein you in, actually. But some conservatives don't want to do that. They don't want to seem aggressive. They don't want to seem illiberal or authoritarian or whatever other polemical terms of propaganda are being used against us today. Okay, that's fine. Well, don't be surprised when AOC with those eccentric-looking eyes shows up at your door and reins in your ability to speak. That was a great clip. Now hold up, ring the bell, subscribe to the Michael Knowles YouTube channel. We will see you next time.